In the meantime, we've already seen a headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal that the Indian rupee is sliding the most since 2023 versus the dollar. A lot of that being the knock-on effect, of course, of what we saw on Friday's payrolls numbers. How much of that dollar surge is going to overshadow the growth story, the positive growth story from a lot of these EM countries, not just in India, China, but perhaps in Latin America as well?
It's definitely an issue, and particularly right now, especially when you mention India, in context of the oil price surge to a month-to-month high. Remember, when you get oil priced in dollars at a multi-month high, the consequence, and the dollar is at a multi-year high, the consequences for other currencies are quite dramatic. India is a major commodity importer, so it made sense today that rupee suffered particularly badly, given that those oil price moves and given the backdrop of a strong dollar, higher US yields anyways, because of the US data. So I think that is a worrying threat to the EM sector out there. However, it depends on whether you think that this dollar move continues. Remember, we've priced in an exceptional amount of dollar strength over the last few months in anticipation of what Trump might deliver. I kind of feel that the dollar is pricing in many of the potential benefits from potential Trump policies and not so many of the negatives. And I actually think we're getting towards a point where the dollar is probably reaching its zenith. We're probably not quite there yet. I wouldn't want to fade it just yet, but I think we're getting towards a point where dollar has more downside than upside.
Mark, you've just come back from a well-deserved break. How much has changed in the meantime while you've been out? How different do the views look on the backside of the holiday?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say that in the bigger picture, not much, because it all depends on what Trump ultimately delivers, and we don't have loads of clarity yet. We're getting closer to getting that clarity, but, you know, that is really going to decide everything that's priced out there. I think away from that big headline macro stuff, it's really notable the deterioration in mood in the UK, really completely dramatic, and just, it is very new, but obviously these oil price moves and the latest sanctions from the US on Russia that are really much more impactful than the prior ones make a big difference. And I think the fact that China negativity is really continuing is really notable. So I'd say it's away from the biggest story, and the biggest story is still what Trump delivers, which we don't know yet what that will be.
Well, Mark, you mentioned the pound. Do the moves we've already seen on cable in the Asian session suggest there's worse to come this week?
I think, unfortunately, the mood around the pound does remain extremely negative. Talking to everyone, they see either way inflation prints as being a negative catalyst for the currency. I think we're probably reaching quite an extreme in terms of the sentiment. I think, you know, we had a bout of bashing the yen against the dollar, then we bashed the euro, then we bashed the Aussie, then we picked sterling. I think, you know, sterling has probably done its shift pretty soon. But again, we may have to wait till after the inflation data this week. Maybe that will be the turning point for people to realise that why is the pound getting particularly picked on? It doesn't have worse growth, worse debt dynamics than many other countries out there.